Hi, I'm Anthony Wilson, the Public Information Officer for the City of San Angelo. And we've recently received a few questions about what it is exactly that the mayor does. And these questions are coming from some of our local school children. So here to explain her job is Mayor Brenda Gunter. So Mayor, what do you say? What does the mayor of San Angelo do?
I look at it in two different ways. Number one, I think the mayor should be the top leader in the community, and that means that leadership is very important. You cannot be a great leader if you don't have leadership skills. So I think that's a number one priority, and that of course leads to a number two priority, and that is being an ear and a voice for all of the citizens who live here in San Angelo, Texas.
And so when you talk about leadership and leadership skills, what skills do you think that you have in particular, and how might you describe your leadership style?
Leadership, I think, starts with the ability to communicate and make sure that the people that you're talking to, your citizens, that they understand where you're going, why you're going there, and the intent for the purpose of it. So leadership and communication, I think, in many ways are one and the same. Number two, having the ability to have a vision for where you want to go. Very often, city council members and mayors get stuck with being in a city council meeting and simply voting yes or no on issues, very often ordinance issues. But ordinance issues are a part of the process of managing the city's needs. I think what we have to do is have a vision for where the city needs to go, so that what we do in a city council meeting is give direction to city staff in terms of the things that need to happen in order for us to be successful as it relates to economic development, quality of life. Those are very important to me. And so leadership, vision, and communication to me are three very important issues.
And yet our style of government is a city manager style of government. And of course the city manager is led by the city council and the mayor. So explain the difference between what our city manager, Daniel Valenzuela, does on a day-to-day basis versus what it is that you do as our mayor.
Number one, what I do is the mayor is to put out the strategy and the vision for where we need to go, and make sure that Daniel, in leading his team of people, are following that leadership strategy and vision. They need to know where we want to go. Otherwise, all of the staff is simply doing things like yes and no, pushing paperwork, and I don't mean that negatively, but paperwork is part of the bureaucracy. And they need to have a bigger vision for why they're doing what they're doing and what questions they need to be asking themselves in terms of what is needed to make that vision and strategy happen. For example, when we talk about economic development, we need to make sure that the Planning and Permits Department understands that economic development needs to happen. And the key there is having the ability to say yes, 3 times yes, and not using the word no. No should only happen if, in fact, there's a huge safety issue that would be a problem. Otherwise, what we need to do is to say, we need San Angelo to be seen as a city that it's easy to do business in, it's a city that it's easy to develop in. That's what the message needs to be. So if I'm not, as a leader, saying we need economic development to happen, then the Planning and Permit Department doesn't understand why people are frustrated over here, because it's not matching up. And so you have to set the vision, make sure staff, the city manager and all his staff understand what we need to accomplish and want to accomplish.
Now the mayor is one of 7 members of the city council. How do you differentiate your position versus those other 6 city council members?
I believe that as a mayor, you want to make sure that your city council members understand what your priorities are, and hopefully they then understand my leadership and vision, and that they agree with me. And I think you'll find that this city council agrees with this vision. I think it's their vision too. Not just the mayor's, but their vision as well. They know we need to have economic development happen. They know it. Now, we might not all agree on all of the issues relative to that, because it's a big picture item, but they understand we need growth and development. They understand that the Planning and Permits Department is very key to making sure economic development happens.
How much time do you spend being mayor each day?
Probably 75% of my day is devoted to some aspect of being mayor. And I would say many times that's by my choice. I choose to put really 100% of my energy and efforts towards being mayor, because I think the city deserves that. I think the citizens deserve that. I think they want a mayor who's available and who's reachable and who's touchable, if you will. I want to be one and the same with the citizens.
And as far as being mayor, you've been mayor a little more than a year now.
Correct.
What have you learned about the job that maybe you didn't know your first day on the job?
How involved the citizens perhaps are going to be. And I mean, I knew that there would be great interest. I'm so excited to see how often they reach out to ask a question and ask an opinion. And I love that, because if you want to communicate, you have to be able to listen, to know. It's very easy to sit someplace and say, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4. But does that 1, 2, 3, 4 really is the same 1, 2, 3, 4 that everybody sees? And of course, it's going to be different for everybody. If you're 75 and retired, your wants and needs are going to be different than if you're 22 and looking for a job. So I want to talk about the citizens and the city of San Angelo being a place to live and work, and what in a place that is a quality place depending on where you're at. So we don't want to just develop a city that's quality if you're 25 years of age, but what if you're 75 years of age? What if you're a retiree? What if you're disabled? What are those things that make San Angelo a quality of place for you? So you can't just be 1, 2, 3, 4. It's got to be a broader vision of those citizens who make up this city.
You obviously relish being mayor. What do you love about the job?
People. It's you. As mayor, I have been able to meet so many more people than I would have ever had the opportunity to. I've been invited to speak at so many organizations that I would not have been asked to speak to before. And so I feel like I've had this huge, wonderful world opened up to me that I didn't have before, and it brings joy to me.
Is there anything about the job that you don't like?
Making the tough decisions, of course, knowing that you're not going to make 100% of the people happy 100% of the time. And sometimes those no decisions really hurt people and upset people. But again, you can't, every decision isn't going to make 100% of the people happy. What you do hope is that the majority of the people are happy with a decision that you made. But the hard part is knowing that you're not going to make everyone happy.
That sort of gets back to your first point about leadership.
Yes.
All right. We've been talking with Mayor Brenda Gunter, and we hope you'll join us for another episode of The City.